Today we will have the third part of the topic, the attack on Israel. Of course, things are getting complicated, but the prophecy told us, and so many without wanting to hear what is more than evident. But this is not all. We will not only talk about the news that has happened since the last presentation we had in the colloquium, but we will see also a detail that is not to be said it mildly, but to show it clearly. Something was planned and elaborated. Biblical prophecy said it, yes, but someone also collected aspects of this conflict, and not only for past times, but also for now. This news review has to do with the attack on Israel. We are already seeing that this is going in crescendo. We will see something else as well, but at the end of the conference. We'll start with this. Cardinal of Jerusalem. It is an increasingly religious conflict, not just political. Christian homes destroyed in Gaza. Interesting, because it is quite clear everyone understands it this way, or should understand it this way, and they are saying it, yes, emphatically and clearly. It is an increasingly religious conflict, not just a political one, because this is the true background of everything. But we will see how throughout all this news, this becomes more and more evident, but also with something that we will probably show in a later conference, God willing. Attention to this interview. Israel versus Palestine conflict. Vatican offers itself for any necessary mediation. The Pope's Cardinal Secretary of State calls for proportionality in the legitimate defense of Israel, expresses his concern for the civilian victims of the bombings of Gaza, and reiterates that despite what is happening, for a peace to be truly just, we must reach to the two-state solution. It is the solution that the Vatican is always proposing. Notice how we started with news that has to do with them precisely, because yes, as we have seen, there is a religious issue behind this conflict. Look in this interview how there are two words joined together with an "and" that is repeated. You will know soon what words I am referring to. The Holy See is ready for any necessary mediation, as always. Cardinal Pietro Parolin, Secretary of State, 6 days after the terrorist attack against Israel, defines the attack carried out last Saturday as inhuman and relaunches Pope Francis's call for the release of all hostages held by Hamas. Parolin calls for proportionality in Israel's legitimate defense, expresses concern for the civilian victims of the Gaza bombings, and reiterates that despite what is happening, for a peace to be truly just, we must reach a two-state solution that allows Palestinians and Israelis to live side by side in peace and security. Well, yes, peace and security. See at what moment they say this famous phrase, peace and security. In which context? Conflict where? In the land known as the Holy Land. Interesting, because when you know the prophetic theme, you will fit everything together much better. To say peace and security in a global context, but with a base localized in the center of planet Earth, it has to do with that area. And, well, here you have the whole speech he makes, and once again, what does he do? Repeats again, peace and security. All of this is not happening just because. We certainly have to keep in mind that what they are saying truly complies with biblical prophecy. But also look, when faced with a question, what he answers after expressing the whole situation that is there regarding Christians in those places. Look when he gets to the end of this interview, what he says. Everything is motionless, paralyzed, as if imprisoned by fear and anger. We pray for the Israelis, we pray for the Palestinians, we pray for the Christians, the Jews, and the Muslims. And look now what he uses, a biblical text, Psalm 122. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. For my brethren and companions' sakes, I will now say, peace be within you. Because of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek your good. Yes, this is not said just for the sake of it, because this has to do with continuing to ask for peace in Jerusalem. That is associated with the construction of the third temple of Jerusalem, so that it can be a house of prayer for all peoples, Christian, Muslim, Jews, and everyone else. Once again, when they use biblical texts, they are referring to their purpose, and so many people do not even realize it. Some will say, no, but this is a biblical text, therefore this is what has to be done. Gentlemen, Jerusalem was destroyed in the year 70 for having despised the Lord Jesus Christ. And we still haven't realized it. And this will continue like this, with conflicts until the end, where that Savior, Messiah, will finally appear, in quotes, who will not be precisely Jesus, but the one who pretends to be him. Once again, I repeat, the biblical texts have a place and are conditional many times when they have to do especially with this issue. And this, unfortunately, is what does not enter the minds of many who still want to be Zionists, in the strictest sense of the word, wanting to make Jerusalem the center of the world, so that there is the third temple and that Messiah comes, the one that they long for so much, and who is going to take them headlong directly to perdition, because it is not going to be Jesus, and this needs to be known. But now let's look at more news. US sends more A-10 jet fighters and F-15 fighters to the Middle East. You can already imagine why, right? Jordan. Displacement of Palestinians pushes region into abyss of broader conflict. The war is killing and displacing innocent Palestinians and will leave the region and the world reeling from an environment of destruction and despair, warned the Jordanian foreign minister. Notice how this conflict is increasingly widening. An enormous abyss. But look at this. Italian defense minister warns of the danger of combatants among migrants. After the start of the war between Hamas and Israel, the European country fears that the militants from Islamist groups will enter its territory from North Africa. Therefore, what we have always said, war in one place and there will be terrorism in the other. And this is what they already fear. So they only fear, well, we'll see something else. Iran warns of far-reaching consequences if Israel's war crimes do not stop. A statement by the Persian nation comes amid fears in the international community that Israel will be forced to wage war on several fronts. Yes, not just in a specific place. And the consequences? You see what Iran is saying. US sends second aircraft carrier group to Mediterranean amid Gaza escalation. The presence of North American warships seeks a message of deterrence to Iran and terrorist groups such as the Lebanese Shiite Hezbollah. Are you noticing the troops, how they are moving? Israel. We will act anywhere in the Middle East to satisfy our needs. This is what the IDF spokesperson said. What's a panorama, huh? Let's continue. The European Union will triple its humanitarian aid to Gaza to more than 75 million euros. The innocent civilians of Gaza must receive assistance, although Israel has the right to defend itself, said Ursula von der Leyen. Look at how Europe must be sending money to Ukraine, now also, of course, money to Gaza. They will still have to multiply it. No, not multiply it, triple it, what they were already doing. What does this mean? Well, Europe is going to be resentful of all this enormous economic potential that it is giving outwards. And what will it cause as a result? Well, obviously, weaken the citizens of Europe economically and in social position. Generating what? Well, as you can see, more problems. But let's continue, because there is still more. The thing is, all of this is linked. They are not things that can be completely separated. Everything is part of the same pot that is cooking and is going to generate problems worldwide. A Pakistani party expresses its support for Palestine and could join Hamas on the front. The leader of Jamaat Ulema-e-Islam called the Palestinian movement's attacks a historic success and urged the Arab community to take a firm stance against Israel. They are joining in, right? Hamas wants war between Muslims and the world, says British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly. Is this prophecy? Or is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Have you read the text of Daniel 11 from 40 to 45? Well, if you haven't done it, do it now. Have you not seen the conferences we presented on this matter, and also on Gog and Magog, and the prophecy that has to do with Turkey in the end times? Well, you better do it, because you will find out about things that you will see how everything is adding up, and the statements of these politicians do nothing more than reaffirm the biblical prophecy. Everything is going to be fulfilled. Israel denounces that 9 rockets were launched from Lebanon against its territory. Open fronts, you see. Axios. Iran says it will intervene in the event of an Israeli ground operation in the Gaza Strip. You already know that all the troops are prepared, increasingly, but they have not yet entered that terrain. If that happens, let's get ready. The Iranian foreign minister clarified that Tehran does not want the Palestinian-Israeli conflict to become a regional war. But more and more voices are saying there will be a regional war. A missile falls on the headquarters of the UN mission in Lebanon, commanded by Spain. There were no deaths or injuries, but once again, you see that all this is expanding. Lebanon. And look at this. Russia, between Israel and Palestine. It is an article taken from a Catholic page. I only show you the headline. The world war in pieces that Pope Francis has evoked for years is indeed developing in an increasingly global manner. And Russia sees in it the fulfillment of its mission to challenge the dominance of the collective West. Solzhenitsyn's words about the stormy relationship between Russians and Jews come to mind. How interesting, huh? They pick up again that famous phrase that the Pope has not stopped repeating about, world war in pieces. And so it is becoming increasingly global. In fact, what did the prophecy tell us would happen? This. And the Pope knows that this must happen like this due to biblical prophecy. Surely he knows that prophecy well. But he knows that in order for the papacy to gain power and have the Messiah at his side, that is Satan posing as Christ, all this must happen first, no matter what. They have no choice. There is no other way. Satan, no matter what, must do these things to fulfill his objective. And God is going to allow it. And God, as he knew the future, left it written so that nothing would catch us off guard, so that we would know the steps that the Antichrist par excellence was going to take, yes, which is Satan obviously posing as Christ, but also the other Antichrist, the papal system that must work on everything, everywhere, so that the situation can develop. Well, let's continue. But interesting, huh? Israel and Palestine, and who is in the middle of this whole situation? Also Russia. Enmity, stormy relationship between Russians and Jews. Remember Gog and Magog. Remember those themes. And now look at more news, and this is not exactly in that area in the Middle East. A man kills a Muslim child in the United States and leaves his mother seriously injured. And horribly he did it, terribly. It's not even worth describing it because it is atrocious. Well, when you see his appearance, obviously it already seems that he does not seem to be very sane. But even so, why does all this occur? Well, it happens because inside people begin to move towards one side or the other. Yes, this is how everyone manifests themselves more and more, for or against one or the other. And those who are not in their right mind Well, you can already imagine what they will do, like this one. And this in the United States. Yes, we are talking about Islamic terrorism, yes, but we see that it can also be from the other side, right? The polarized world. Gaza could become a cemetery for Israeli troops, Iran warns. If the measures aimed at immediately stopping the Israeli attacks end in a stalemate, it is very likely that many other fronts will be opened, said the Iranian foreign minister. And if many other fronts are opened, it is a regional war, no matter what. Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amirabdollahian has warned of an escalation of the situation in the Middle East if Israel carries out its ground operation in the Gaza Strip. They say that they will not do it, Israel, enter Gaza until they have spoken with Biden, and Biden is already there. We will see what ends up happening. If measures aimed at immediately stopping the Israeli attacks that are killing children in the Gaza Strip end in a stalemate, it is very likely that many other fronts will open. This option is not ruled out and is increasingly likely, the Iranian foreign minister said in an interview with Al Jazeera on Sunday. Yes, it is becoming more and more likely. That is evident. Furthermore, the diplomat added that with the beginning of the Israeli operation in the area, the resistance leaders will turn Israel into a cemetery for the occupation soldiers. Well, some words, huh? Previously, the Iranian permanent mission to the UN stated that Tehran does not intend to enter into a military conflict with Israel unless it attacks it. The Iranian armed forces will not participate in the conflict as long as the Israeli apartheid does not dare to attack Iran, its interests and its nationals. The Tehran delegation stated, "The resistance front can defend itself," he added. Meanwhile, the President of the United States, Joe Biden, issued a warning on Sunday to Iran and Hezbollah, considered its proxy force in the region, not to further escalate the war conflict. "Don't do it, he declared. Are they going to do it? Time to time. Arrested for sexually assaulting 2 female passengers on a train and shouting that he is from Hamas. Yes, and this in Spain. And, well, the thing is disgusting, really. I don't even want to mention it here. And some doubts that this person was really for this, for Hamas, and not that he wasn't right in the head. Because there it is. Look how everything revolves around the same thing, whether true or not. The excuse is there. Well, we'll see what else ends up happening. We'll see what things are already happening and have happened. Arrested for attacking 2 people with a machete while shouting Allah is great. Yes, here too. And by golly, they say that, well, probably it's that he was crazy rather than being a radical Islamist. But yes, you see, once again, everything that is moving in the same words, with the same words. Iran says, spread of war to other countries nears inevitable point. And Biden, the United States is the most powerful nation in history. He assures that Washington is capable of supporting Ukraine and Israel at the same time. And look at his statements. US President Joe Biden called his country the most powerful nation in world history, ensuring that it is capable of simultaneously providing military support to both Ukraine and Israel. This was stated in an interview for the CBS News program 60 Minutes, broadcasted on Sunday. During the interview, Biden was asked if it was too difficult for Washington to support 2 countries at the same time since the start of fighting between Israel and the Palestinian movement Hamas, which controls the Gaza Strip. No, we are the United States of America, for the love of God, the most powerful nation in history. Not in the world, in the history of the world, he said. It certainly sounds like brutal arrogance, right? But these are his statements, and this is what, in fact, can be confirmed because you already see how they work. In his words, the United States can help both sides and continue to maintain its global international defense. We have the ability to do it, and we have the obligation. If we don't do it, who will? He said, calling his country the essential nation, referring to the words of former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. Well, what they often say are the world police? Well, in short, that is what they are expressing. If they don't put things in order, who will ultimately do it? How interesting. A nation that was called by God to arise so that those persecuted Protestants with problems in Europe could be free there. And that was prophecy in Revelation. That is how it appeared. And what do you know? It happened. But also, later, Revelation tells us that what seemed like a lamb would speak like a dragon. And so the North American nation has been changing its role until it became one with the papacy more and more, and they will be the ones who will give that terrible mark of worship, of total support to a day that must be observed no matter what, or will have to be observed no matter what. Sunday as a day of rest, and will also be established by force everywhere. Therefore, you see the panorama. Through prophecy we can understand what some are going to fulfill and what others are going to fulfill. Meanwhile, we are seeing how everything is being prepared for it, and there are still so many people who do not know how to interpret those prophecies, sadly, or they intentionally misinterpret them, and what happens? That they are not aware of where in the world we are in the history of humanity. Iran warns of possible preventive actions in the coming hours by forces against Israel. What's that panorama say? Well, look what he says. The senior official stated that the leaders of the resistance force will not allow the Israeli authorities to take any action in Gaza. In that context, he indicated that all options are open if Israel continues to commit war crimes in Gaza. All possible options and scenarios are there for the Lebanese Shiite group Hezbollah. Everything has been considered correct in their calculations, and their resistance leaders will not allow the Zionist regime to take any action in the region. Any preventive measure is possible in the next few hours, he declared. In his words, the leaders of the resistance force are capable of waging a long-term war against Israel. Almost nothing, hey? He doesn't say in a flash, and that's it. Long-term war. At the same time, he reiterated that Iran does not support the prospect of an expansion of the conflict, but admitted the probability of Tehran entering the war. If we do not defend Gaza today, we must defend our cities tomorrow, he says. Oh. In the context of Amir Abdollahian's statements, Al Jazeera reports that the term resistance front has been used for years to refer to members of the pro-Iran camp who oppose Israel, the United States and their allies in the region. Thus, the group includes the Lebanese Shiite movement Hezbollah, pro-Iran militias in Syria and Iraq, and the Houthi rebels in Yemen. Al Jazeera indicates that Hamas is also associated with the resistance front. Well, some also wonder why this conflict in Yemen. You see how everything is moving everywhere, right? What is behind all this? Highest representative of the Catholic Church in Jerusalem is willing to exchange himself for Hamas hostages. We are willing to help, including me personally, said Pier Battista Pizzaballa, Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem. How beautiful, hey? He offers himself in exchange for those children. Let's see something else. The highest representative of the Catholic Church in Jerusalem, Pier Battista Pizzaballa, stated that he was willing to exchange himself for the children taken hostage by Hamas. I'm willing to trade anything. If it can lead to freedom, to bringing the children home, no problem. There is total will on my part, Pizzaballa said this Monday during a video conference with journalists. Is this something feasible? Wait. Well, perhaps you are already thinking, well, but the Vatican also acted as an intermediary with the children from Ukraine who were taken to Russia. They are very interested and concerned about the children. Let's keep going. The Cardinal, current Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, insisted on the need to achieve the release of all those held captive and also referred to the Holy See's offer of mediation. The first thing to do is try to obtain the release of the hostages. Otherwise, there will be no way to stop an escalation. We are willing to help, even me personally, he stressed. Pizzaballa said that they are trying to get at least some of them, of the children, to return home. However, so far, they have not had any direct contact with the Palestinian movement. It is very difficult because for mediation you need interlocutors, and at this moment it is not possible to talk to Hamas, he explained. Of course you can offer yourself this way because it's not possible, there is no option for it. Thus, he reported that around 1,000 Christians had taken refuge in church buildings in northern Gaza after their homes were destroyed by Israeli attacks. They don't know where to go because moving is dangerous, he added. Diplomatic efforts to bring aid to Gaza have intensified in recent days as Israel prepares a ground invasion to neutralize Hamas. In this context, Pizzaballa expressed concern that the military operation will cause a much more serious humanitarian crisis, with which there will undoubtedly be many victims. On the other hand, the Cardinal fears that the conflict will move to a regional scale, involving not only Gaza or possibly the West Bank, but also Lebanon, and the Islamic world could explode. It is very difficult to predict events, but the fear of regional expansion is real, and I am not the only one who says it, he added. Pizzaballa, Pope Francis's representative in the Holy Land, oversees Roman Catholic activities in Israel and the Palestinian territories, as well as in Jordan and Cyprus, a region home to a congregation of approximately 300,000 believers. Yes, the entire Islamic world could explode then. These are words that he himself expresses. This is not just his thing, he is not the only one who says it, and of course, we are verifying it. He is not the only one who is expressing it. The fear of that happening is there. But is it just fear or certainty? Because by biblical prophecy, that is certainty. Well, once again, we see how everything is moving. But how interesting that the same people who are capable of pulling the strings from behind, in front have the appearance of working for the good of humanity. How curious, right? If you do not know the prophecy and the history, you will not know anything about who pulls the strings for all this to happen. Once again, remember, the third temple in Jerusalem must be built, the Vatican must be placed there, and Satan must appear posing as Christ. Who prepares all this? The same people involved. We still don't know it. CNN. United States sends 2,000 Marines to the coast of Israel. Washington's initiative aims to deter Iran and the Lebanese Shiite group Hezbollah. United States troops are moving there. Are they just troops? Let's see what they tell us. The Pentagon has sent a rapid response force for possible deployments to the coast of Israel in support of the Israeli offensive against Hamas militias, CNN reported, citing two defense officials familiar with the planning. The contingent, made up of 2,000 Marines and sailors, will join a growing number of U.S. warships and troops assisting Israel, the sources said, as Washington tries to send a message of deterrence to Iran and the Shiite Lebanese group Hezbollah. Likewise, the U.S. Secretary of State Lloyd Austin ordered on Sunday the preparation of 2,000 troops to deploy in non-war support to the Jewish nation. The troops would be in charge of missions such as medical advice and support, according to the Wall Street Journal. You realize 2,000 U.S. Marines and sailors, warships, troops assisting Israel. They are promoting it. But also 2,000 for what else? For non-war support to the Jewish nation. Advice, medical support. How interesting. How many times did we say that US and allied troops would be supporting Israel in that area? You remember it? We have been presenting this for years, and there you are having it. Why? Because we are futuristic fortune tellers? No, because we have biblical prophecy interpreting it as it should. And there you have it. Have they told you anything in your churches about this? Like this? Well, think about where you are. According to defense officials, these measures together seek to avoid a broader regional war, as officials have insisted that the United States does not plan to deploy troops on the ground to fight the war between Israel and pro-government militias of the Palestinian cause. But there it is. Report: Israel's attacks on Gaza are equivalent to a quarter of a nuclear bomb. The Israeli army has launched more than 10,000 bombs against the Gaza Strip in 1 week, twice as many as the United States launched in Afghanistan in an entire year, according to Jacobin data. Impressive, right? Well, take a good look at this. The armed forces of Israel have launched ammunition on the Gaza Strip equivalent to a quarter of a nuclear bomb. Reported who? The Euro-Mediterranean Observatory for Human Rights reported last Saturday in a report published on the website of the Coordination Office of the Humanitarian Affairs of the UN. Therefore, it seems to be a means that is not exactly that of Israel's enemies. Therefore, a piece of information that more or less has to go in this way. According to the report, Israel kills about 14 Palestinians every hour in its attacks on Gaza. Well, statistics come out, right? Obviously clear, one can say, well, but they attacked first and carried out an unjustified massacre, etc., etc. How would Israel's retaliation have to be? Well, knowing how they have always worked, what could we expect? Well, that's an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth will fall short again. It's logical. It's how they move. It's how they do it. But this is not all. Israeli Defense Minister: it will be a long war and the price will be high. Nah, this is not war, right? These are skirmishes. It's just a joke, right? It will be a long war and the price will be high. Look, they are telling us this everywhere. After meeting with Antony Blinken, Yoav Gallant expressed confidence that Israel will win the war against Hamas. And look how they say it. He assured that Israel, with the support of Washington, will be able to win it. Yes. But it still says something else. That the armed conflict with Hamas will not end in the near future. What statement, huh? Remember, he is the Minister of Defense of Israel. This will be a long war. The price will be high, he has stated. But we are going to win for Israel and for the Jewish people and for the values in which both countries believe. He added, in reference to his nation and the United States, it is prophecy before us continually. Gallant described the United States as a great ally whose support has just been reaffirmed by the transfer of the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier strike group to the Eastern Mediterranean. On the other hand, the Secretary of Defense of the United States, Lloyd Austin, announced this Saturday that he ordered the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower aircraft carrier strike group to begin moving towards the same area. And these are powerful aircraft carriers, right? They are not a joke. The Israeli Defense Minister thanked Blinken for his unwavering support and commitments to Israeli security. Gallant stressed that this is Blinken's second visit in a week and stated that the everyday visits of senior U.S. officials to Israel and the American flag flying in the Mediterranean Sea are a powerful message to the world. There can no longer be any more prophecy before us. What more do we wait to believe? Attack in Brussels. The elite terrorist was having a coffee in Brussels when he was killed. Remember, it was the moment when a soccer match between two teams was supposed to start, and lo and behold, a terrorist appeared, killed two of those who supported the rival team, the Swedes, and fled on a motorcycle. Then they found him, in the search they did, having a coffee in a bar in the center of the city, and he was shot down. Anyway, we said it. How many years ago? War on one side, terrorism on the other. Once again, here you have it. Iran warns of preventive action against Israel in the coming hours. Yes, this was yesterday's news. The fear of scale increases. Iran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdollahian warned of possible preventive action in the coming hours by resistance groups against Israel if attacks on Gaza continue. Possible preventive action by the resistance is expected in the next few hours, he said, on state television late Monday night. On the other hand, the Islamic resistance movement Hamas has announced that it intends to release all foreign hostages held captive in the Gaza Strip since the incursion of October the 7th into Israeli territory. In addition, he has estimated the number of Hamas hostages at 200, while other Palestinian militias would have about 50 prisoners. In addition, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has announced that the President Joe Biden will visit Israel this Wednesday, and he's already there, right? Well, but this is not all. Seoul believes Pyongyang may have helped Hamas. Notice how the conflict is not only in that area. That is what, of course, those who are allies of each other in different parts of this globe are for. Yes, I mean this globe, not the flat earth, right? Globe. The South Korean military believes that the North Korea may have directly or indirectly provided weapons to the Islamist group Hamas after analyzing the attacks carried out by the militia against Israel on October the 7th. The Joint Chiefs of Staff confirmed this Tuesday in a text message sent to journalists that anti-tank rockets or artillery ammunition of North Korean origin may have been used in the terrorist attacks that the Palestinian militia perpetrated on a large scale 10 days ago, not seen in recent decades. The JCS text message confirms what one of its spokespersons said to the Yonhap agency hours before. It is believed that Hamas has a direct or indirect link. Hamas in several areas such as arms trade, tactical training and military training. Well, here you see that everyone is getting into the same bag, right? On one hand or on the other. Do we realize that the day the winds are released, as the text of Revelation says, that the angels are still holding back, how messed up this is going to get? The Middle East is about to fall into an abyss, warns the King of Jordan. All our efforts are needed to ensure that we do not come to that, declared Abdullah II. Ayatollah Khamenei: if Israel's crimes continue, Muslims will lose their patience. In the case of Palestine, what is before the eyes of the entire world is the crime of genocide of the occupying regime. The whole world sees it, said Iran's supreme leader. And what is happening? Well, that United States embassies in different places are having problems with people who want to go and wreak havoc there. But in addition, there are demonstrations in different parts of the world of people who are complaining about the same thing. Do we realize that this is not just an issue of that area? That this is all-encompassing? Well, of course, we can say, yes, but these are the statements of this character, yes, but they are received this way by other people in other places. So you think that this is going to end up saying, okay, peace for all, little flowers and everything fixed. Really? Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Hosseini Khamenei, warned on Tuesday that if Israel's crimes in the Gaza Strip continue, no one will be able to stand up with the wrath of Muslims. If these crimes continue, Muslims and resistance forces will lose their patience and no one will be able to stop them. You should know this. This is a fact that exists, said Ali Khamenei, quoted by the IRNA agency. The threats are total, right? Israel's attack against Latin American countries that denounce the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Yes, do you realize this covers the entire world? The main diplomatic dispute was with the government of Gustavo Petro after his demonstrations in support of the cause of Palestine and against what he described as genocide. Therefore, they are also polarizing in Latin America. Some towards one side, others towards another. And who else, apart from Gustavo Petro, as a representative of his government? The Israeli foreign minister has been attacking Latin American governments that do not share its vision of its war against Hamas in Palestine through its embassies for days. In the case of Colombia, the diplomatic tension left relations between both countries on the verge of breaking up following the demonstrations of the president, Gustavo Petro, in support of the cause of Palestine and against what he described as genocide in Gaza. But this is not all. Other governments that caused annoyance in Israeli diplomacy were those of Brazil, Mexico, and Chile. Take a look at what tendencies they are, the right or left. In this case, left are the ones who position themselves not exactly favoring Israel, and Israel automatically taking a dislike to them. We said, remember, a report that had to do with the United States Army, the Navy, the secret military services, and whoever you want, whatever you want. They made a report, and in that report, all those years ago, they predicted war in Latin America for 2025. Will all this happen? Of course, we are seeing how China and Russia have interests in the region, and the United States and allies too. Now it is complicated by this whole situation with Israel. Will something happen there? You already know that there are secret services that move to also generate conflicts, right? Well, let's be attentive. And now I take this opportunity to say that, sadly, some church pastors are calling people to say that in 2025, and I'm talking about people who have segregated themselves from the Adventist Church, the Sunday law comes in 2025, and therefore we must flee from the United States, and they are selling their properties to go to Latin America, because almost those who live there are Latin Americans. Well, they are taking them, you can see where, to the slaughterhouse, for misunderstanding the prophecy, for having rejected that 2031 is the year of Christ's return, and for rejecting that 3.5 years before Christ's return, the Sunday law will come, but not before that date, because ecumenism must come first. Once again, continue rejecting the truth of the fourth angel's message, and you will see where you end up. And sadly, so many listen to those pastors, so to speak, that they call themselves pastors, and what they truly are. Anyway, I'll better keep quiet. British Navy ships move to the Eastern Mediterranean. What, are the allies of the United States and Israel also going there or not? Well, you see it. The ships Argus and Lyme Bay of the Royal Auxiliary Fleet left Gibraltar. Yes, from Gibraltar in the south of Spain, which is that piece of rock, already a bit of territory, that belongs to whom? To the United Kingdom. Well, from there they also leave for that area. Say Palestine and I'll kill you, man threatens UNICEF staff in Italy. In Milan specifically. Interesting, huh? We are telling you, people are polarizing and they do not need to be in that area. This happened in Italy. Look what happened. Man attacks UNICEF aid raisers for Gaza. Once again, we realize that this is not a fiction. It is already happening. People take a position. Some will only express it. Others will perhaps keep it to themselves. But others, who aren't very right in their head, or that are extremely extremist, you can imagine the reaction, like these things you've seen now. This is not going to stop anywhere. But this is not all. President of Palestine refuses to meet with Biden. In addition, the King of Jordan and the President of Egypt were to participate in the meeting. Well, none of that. Hamas blames US for Gaza hospital attack. Yes, this happened yesterday, and, they said 500 dead, hospital devastated, etc., etc. Well, here you have the first accusation. The leader of the radical movement, Ismail Haniyeh, stated that Washington bears responsibility for the attack on the hospital due to the cover-up it gives to Israeli aggression. Therefore, it is not only against Israel, but also against the United States for its support. This from Hamas, but automatically, what happens? Now you will see. Before, Israel advises its citizens to leave Turkey immediately. The authorities also reiterated the call to avoid non-essential travel to Arab countries and states bordering Iran, specifically highlighting Jordan, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, and Azerbaijan. Yes, people unhappy towards the United States are rising again, and all this is triggering it. But look, there's even more. Raisi says the flames of the American and Israeli bombs dropped on the Gaza hospital will soon engulf the Zionists. No free human being can remain silent in the face of such a war crime. The Iranian president wrote about the deadly attack on Gaza's Al-Hali hospital, which, by the way, the hospital is Anglican, or, well, they have said it is Anglican. Others have said of another Protestant denomination, but the statements are clear. Who was it? Israel. But who is with them? The United States. Therefore, all of this will turn against them. These are the accusations by Iran. But it does not end here. Israel and Hamas accused each other of the attack. Yes, because Israel has denied it, and they accuse the Islamic Jihad of having launched a failed rocket that would have hit the hospital. But it's not all. Hezbollah begins its unprecedented day of rage by attacking an Israeli tank. Israel denied this Wednesday that the massacre of hundreds of people due to a bombing to the Al-Ahli hospital in Gaza took place, and assured that the building is not destroyed, that it has not suffered serious damage, and that there was only a minor explosion in the hospital's adjacent parking lot caused by a failed rocket from the Gazan group Islamic Jihad. The explosion at Al-Ali's hospital is due to an Islamic Jihad rocket, whose launch failed. They are inflating the victim figures. There was no direct impact on the hospital, Israeli Armed Forces spokesman Daniel Hagari said in a press conference. Once again, as always, you no longer know who to believe when data is given or things happen, because some say it is like this, and others deny it, and some accuse others. This is the politics of war, false information on the one hand or on the other. But the fact is that all this is serving to turn people towards one side or the other, generating more conflict. Well, I told you that we were not only going to review the news until last hour practically of what has been happening, where we are verifying that this is going to get worse and that the prophecy is before us. And it is going to be fulfilled no matter what, because the time has already arrived. I told you I would show you something, and it's this. Do you remember? We presented it in the conference number 1 in the year 2006. I had personally shown it before in preaching in church. And here you have a box of a role-playing card game, or role-playing game, Illuminati New World Order. I have this card game. We were able to acquire it at the time in the United States. Because look, it says down here, winner of the Origins Award, Best Science Fiction Board Game in 1983. This game was confiscated everywhere in the United States. Yes, it won this award, but then it was confiscated. Thank God we found a place where they still had one, and we were able to obtain it and show it at the time, there in that year, not in 1983, but when we purchased it. It turns out that it was talking about the attack on what? Do you remember it? The Twin Towers and the Pentagon. And it happened just as it appeared in those cards. Some say, no, this is based on some books and they illustrated it as a game. But those are not fiction books, and that's it. This, what was behind it, is much more. Steve Jackson, who made this game, had problems because of it. He had to even go to trial, and finally he was able to win it. He was able to re-edit the game and even expand it. But he and everything that's moved around him goes much further. It was already said at that time that information had been extracted from a computer belonging to someone extremely important, and that it was used to make this game with the plans that someone had for what was going to happen in this world. It was not science fiction, it was an agenda. A satanic agenda where the Pope on duty and many more things are also shown there. Yes. Secret societies, Illuminati, Vatican, But there was also talk of something that was evidently already there at that time as tension, but that indicated that there would also be something else later. And here you have it. Israel appeared. Conflict, obviously, but also, who else? The Mossad, Israeli intelligence service, preparing and generating things. But who else? Islamic Jihad. Well, once again, notice that always when something appears in the drawings, or many times denoting who is moving all this, look at the head of the person leaning against that wall. There's a little yellow sign with a triangle forming the pyramid, in this case in blue, with a luminous thing above. Well, all this is not happening just because. And once again, while people will only continue to see that this is a conflict between each other, between ones and others, if you do not know the prophecy and if you do not know who is moving all this, you will not find out about it. That this conflict was planned, and we will show it soon, God willing, if there is a fourth part of this topic, where this had already been written for many years, that there would be a third world conflict and that it would involve the characters or powers that we are already seeing, more than characters, because the characters change, but the powers are there. And once again, we will show something that we showed so many years ago, and that so many people have not yet seen, unfortunately. And we always say, go to our Great Deception channel. Look for the conferences and follow them in order since 2006. Although topics that were presented there in 2006 had already been presented before, not only in 2001, but even before in the Adventist Church in Girona, in Catalonia. And there you can see how everything we show is happening as it is. Because the prophecies were being well interpreted, thank God, and thanks to the Adventist pioneers who analyzed the biblical text and showed how everything would point to what is already happening today. Some even anticipated all of this, putting what was going to happen at the end in their own time, as was the case of Uriah Smith in his books of Daniel and Revelation. But time is proving them right, and to him also, yes, that everything would happen in accordance with it. They simply made a mistake with the time. Yes, there were already indications that this was the case, and they applied it right at that moment. But the thing was postponed. God did not allow everything to happen completely, because the end would have already come, and the end could not come. The 6,000 years had to be fulfilled from the entry of sin for the return of Christ, and they had not yet passed. But now they are getting closer, and what was predicted in prophecy will be completely fulfilled, including the year of Christ's return, because the 6,000 years end in 2031. A year before, Satan will come posing as Christ, and so many people are going to see him as if he were truly Jesus. Either we know that, or we are in a terrible position. That's why I tell you, look at the conferences in order, and you will see how things we present so many years ago, they are now in front of us. Don't you believe it? Have guts and take a look, and you will have to recognize the truth if you want to be saved. But if you have more pride, and pride is more important to you than being saved, I feel sorry for you. But salvation will come to those who seek it. Whoever seeks it from the heart, and God is going to give it to you. But being in the truth, not remaining in errors, lies, and deceptions, no. In the truth. So, that's it for today's conference. Once again, thank you to those who continue to collaborate with tithes and offerings, donations, so that we continue to show the truth of the fourth angel's message to the entire world, and the entire world will find out one day what is behind everything. And everyone must decide for or against the truth to be saved or not. From here on, each one decides. May God bless you. Maranatha 2031.